Her voice trembled, soft yet filled with a desperation that cut through the silence of the store. I promise to pay when I grow up. Please, sir, I just need 1 bottle of milk for my little brother. He hasn't eaten since yesterday." The cashier froze, his hand hovering above the counter, staring down at the small girl who could barely reach the edge of the register. She was no more than 7 years old, her hair tied in 2 uneven braids, her clothes worn thin, and her eyes glistening with tears. She fought hard not to let fall. For a moment, time stood still. The quiet hum of the store's refrigerators, the faint squeak of a cartwheel in the next aisle, the smell of bread just stocked. Everything faded. All that remained was the fragile plea of a child who carried the weight of hunger, not just for herself, but for someone even smaller, waiting at home. The cashier, a middle-aged man with graying hair, cleared his throat awkwardly. "Little girl," he said hesitantly, "this isn't a place where you can just take things and promise later. It doesn't work like that." Her lips quivered. She clutched the milk bottle tighter, as if it were life itself. "But I swear, when I grow up, I'll come back and pay. I'll work. I'll do anything. Just please, my baby brother is crying, and my mom doesn't have any money." The man shifted uncomfortably, torn between the rules of his job and the look in the child's eyes. Other shoppers had begun to notice. Some shook their heads, others whispered, and a few pulled out their phones as if this was just another spectacle to post online. But among them was one man who didn't just see a child begging for milk. He saw something deeper. Standing near the bread aisle, a tall man in his late 40s, dressed casually in a plain jacket and jeans, watched quietly. His eyes, however, carried the sharpness of someone who had seen both poverty and wealth. He was a millionaire, though no one in this store knew. To them, he was just another customer, blending in like anyone else. But for him, this moment stirred memories he had buried long ago. The girl, still holding the milk, whispered again, her voice breaking, "Please, I promise I'll pay when I grow up." The cashier sighed heavily, shaking his head. "Little one, I can't let you take it without paying. That's stealing. Rules are rules." Her shoulders sagged, and for the first time a single tear escaped down her cheek. She whispered so softly it was almost a prayer, "Then my brother will go hungry again." The man in the jacket couldn't stand still any longer. He stepped forward, his footsteps echoing against the polished floor, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. He placed a gentle hand on the counter, his deep voice calm but commanding. "I'll pay for the milk." The cashier looked up, startled. "Sir, it's just—" "I said," the man repeated firmly, yet with kindness. "I'll pay for the milk." The little girl turned, her wide eyes staring up at him, disbelief written all over her face. You would do that? For me?" He crouched down to her level, his gaze softening. "Not just for you, for your brother too. No child should ever have to beg for food, especially not with words like, 'I promise to pay when I grow up.' That's too heavy a promise for someone your age." The crowd went quiet. The whispers stopped. Even the cashier lowered his head, shame creeping into his expression. The girl clutched the milk against her chest, still unsure if this was real. But I don't know you." The man smiled faintly. "That's the thing about kindness. It doesn't need to know your name to matter." For the next few minutes, the store became more than just a place of transactions. It became a place where humanity was tested. The man bought not only the milk, but also bread, fruits, and a small box of cereal. He handed the bags to the little girl, who struggled to hold them but refused to let go as if someone might change their mind. The cashier, almost ashamed, muttered, "I'm sorry, kid. I didn't mean to be harsh. It's just rules." The man glanced at him, his eyes firm but not cruel. "Sometimes rules make us forget we're human first." The girl, overwhelmed, whispered again, "When I grow up, I'll pay you back." I promise. The man shook his head gently. When you grow up, promise me something else instead. She blinked up at him. What? Promise me that when you see someone else in need, you'll remember this moment and help them. That's how you pay me back. Her small face lit with a mixture of hope and determination, her tears drying as quickly as they had come. She nodded fiercely. I promise. The crowd, still silent, watched the exchange with something they rarely felt in their daily rush: guilt, awe, and inspiration. Some even looked away, ashamed that it hadn't been them to step forward first. As the man walked out with the girl, the weight of her words lingered in the air. I promise to pay when I grow up. It was more than a child's plea. It was a reminder that kindness isn't a debt. It's a chain, passed from one person to another, shaping lives far beyond what we can see. And sometimes all it takes to change a future is a bottle of milk and the courage to say, I'll help. The man carried the bags out of the store alongside the little girl, his steps calm and steady, while hers were hurried, almost anxious. She clutched the bottle of milk tightly as if it were more precious than gold, constantly looking up at him as though she were afraid he might disappear at any moment. Which way is your home? He asked softly. She hesitated, her eyes darting nervously. It's not far, just down the street. He gave her a reassuring nod. Don't worry. I just want to make sure you and your brother get this home safe. As they walked, the street grew quieter. Old houses with peeling paint, broken fences, and cracked sidewalks stretched around them. The man's heart grew heavier with every step because the surroundings reminded him of his own childhood. Hungry nights, broken promises, and a world that seemed to forget poor children even existed. The girl led him to a small, run-down apartment complex. The building's bricks were chipped, the stair railing wobbled, and one of the windows was patched with cardboard. She paused at the door, glancing up at him nervously. You can leave here if you want. I can carry it inside. He crouched down to meet her eyes again. Would it be okay if I said hello to your mom? Just to make sure she's all right? She chewed her lip, torn. Finally, she whispered, Okay. But she gets sad a lot. The girl pushed open the door. Inside, the apartment was dimly lit. The smell of dampness mixed with the faint aroma of something burnt. A thin blanket lay across a broken couch, and on it, a baby no older than 2 lay crying weakly. A woman sat nearby, her face pale, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. She looked up sharply when the girl entered, her voice trembling. Where have you been, Ava? The little girl, Ava, hurried over, lifting the bottle of milk like a trophy. Mama, look, I got milk for Eli. The woman's eyes widened in disbelief. But how? We didn't have money. Ava turned and pointed at the man standing quietly near the door. He helped us. The woman's gaze shifted, her body tense. Sir, I don't know what to say. We don't take charity. The man stepped forward gently, placing the bags on the small table. It's not charity. It's kindness. And kindness doesn't need repayment. Her lips pressed into a thin line, shame flickering in her tired eyes. We've had so many people look down on us. I don't want my children growing up thinking they're less. He nodded slowly, his voice steady. Then let them grow up knowing they're worthy of love, worthy of help, and worthy of a future. Accepting kindness doesn't make you less. It gives you strength for tomorrow. The room fell silent. The baby's cries softened as Ava handed the milk to her mother, who quickly poured it into a small cup. The child drank greedily, and the sound of his tiny gulps filled the air with a relief that words couldn't match. The man watched quietly, his hands folded, a storm of emotions inside him. He remembered nights of hunger, when his own mother had worked 3 jobs to keep the family alive. He remembered swearing to himself that if he ever had enough, He'd never let another child suffer what he had endured. The mother, still holding the baby, whispered, "Thank you. You don't even know us." He gave a faint smile. "Sometimes strangers care when the world doesn't. That's enough." Ava tugged at his sleeve suddenly. "Sir, do you have kids?" His smile faltered. He paused before answering, his voice quieter. "No, I don't. Not anymore." The mother looked up, puzzled, but his eyes drifted away, clouded with memories too painful to share. Ava tilted her head innocently. "Did they grow up already?" He took a deep breath, forcing a gentle smile. "Something like that." The little girl nodded, satisfied with the answer. But her question had reopened wounds he carried silently. His daughter, gone too soon in an accident years ago. He had buried himself in work, in money, in building an empire, but moments like this stripped everything bare. What good was wealth when it couldn't bring back the one person he loved most? The mother broke the silence. "Sir, I don't know how long we'll manage. The rent's late, and I haven't found steady work. Every day feels like a fight I'm losing." Her words hit him harder than she realized. He remembered his own mother saying the same, her voice cracking under the weight of responsibility. He clenched his fists gently, then relaxed them. "Maybe I can help," he said finally. The mother shook her head instantly. "No, you've done enough. We can't depend on strangers. People always want something in return." His voice grew firmer, but not unkind. "Not everyone. Some people help because they've been where you are, and they know what it feels like to wish for just one break." Her eyes welled with tears, though she tried to hide them. Ava looked between them, confused but hopeful. "Sir," Ava asked quietly, "are you an angel?" He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No, Ava. I'm just someone who remembers what it's like to be hungry." For the next hour, they talked. The mother told him about losing her husband in an accident 2 years ago, about juggling odd jobs, about the endless bills. He listened, not judging, not interrupting, just listening. And in her words, he saw his own past reflected back at him. When he finally stood to leave, Ava clung to his hand. "Will you come back? Please?" He looked down at her, his chest tightening. "Do you want me to?" She nodded fiercely. "Yes. You make Mama smile. She doesn't smile much anymore." The mother's cheeks flushed, embarrassed, but she didn't deny it. He gave Ava's hand a gentle squeeze. "Then yes, I'll come back." As he walked out into the night, the cool air brushing against his face, his heart felt both heavy and lighter all at once. He had walked into a grocery store to buy bread. Instead, he had walked into a story that would change not just Ava's life, but his own. For the first time in years, he felt the stirrings of something he thought he had lost forever, purpose, and deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The following week, the man returned to the small apartment complex. The memory of Ava's pleading eyes and her mother's weary smile had followed him everywhere. Into his car, into his office, even into the silence of his large, empty home. For years, he had lived surrounded by walls of wealth, but starved of meaning. Now, for the first time in decades, he felt drawn back, not by obligation, but by something stronger, human connection. When he knocked gently on the door, Ava was the one who answered. Her face lit up instantly. "You came back!" she cried, throwing her small arms around his waist. He chuckled, patting her head. "I told you I would." Her mother appeared in the background, startled but relieved. "Sir, I didn't expect you. I hope I'm not intruding," he said softly. "I just thought maybe you could use some groceries, or maybe just some company." The woman hesitated, her pride warring with her reality, but then she stepped aside. "Come in." This time, he brought more than just food. He carried bags filled with fresh vegetables, canned goods, and even a few toys for Ava and her baby brother. Ava's eyes sparkled when she saw the small teddy bear, hugging it tight as though it were her new best friend. "Sir, this is too much," the mother whispered. He shook his head gently. "It's not nearly enough." Over the next few weeks, his visits became routine. Sometimes he brought food, other times he simply sat at the small table and listened. He heard Ava's endless chatter about school, her dreams of becoming a teacher, her fierce determination to grow up fast so she could help her mother. He heard the mother's quiet worries about overdue bills and her struggle to find stable work. But in listening, he found healing. One evening, as they sat in the dimly lit room, Ava asked innocently, "Sir, why are you always so kind to us? Most people walk past us like we don't exist." His gaze dropped, his voice heavy with truth. "Because once, I was you. I was the child who begged for food, who made promises to pay someday, who watched his mother break herself just to keep us alive. And I swore to myself if I ever had the chance, I'd make sure no child near me ever went hungry again." Ava's mother looked at him differently then, not just as a stranger helping out of pity, but as a man carrying scars invisible to the world. Another evening, Ava had fallen asleep on the couch, her teddy bear tucked under her chin, when the mother whispered across the table, "You must be someone important. I can tell. People with ordinary jobs don't give like this." He smiled faintly, leaning back. "Maybe I am, but titles and money mean nothing compared to this." He gestured to Ava, sleeping peacefully. "A child who doesn't have to cry herself to sleep hungry." Her eyes softened, tears threatening. "You've done more for us in a month than anyone else in years." "Then maybe it's not me," he said gently. "Maybe it's just what the world should always do. Care for each other." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Slowly, the mother found part-time work through his quiet connections, though she never knew he had a hand in it. Ava's grades improved because she no longer went to school hungry. The baby grew healthier, his cheeks filling out, his cries replaced with laughter. And the man, this millionaire who once drowned in loneliness, began to feel alive again. The laughter of children in that tiny apartment filled the silence of his soul. He didn't say it aloud, but in many ways, Ava had become the daughter he lost. One rainy evening, Ava burst into the apartment, drenched but glowing with excitement. She held up a paper, her eyes shining. "Sir, Mama, look! I got the highest grade in my class." He knelt down, taking the paper carefully, as though it were a priceless artifact. "Ava, I'm proud of you." Her face glowed with pride, but then her voice grew soft. "It's because I don't feel hungry in class anymore. I can think better now." "Sir, I think you saved me." Those words pierced through him. He had spent years thinking his money was just numbers in a bank account, trophies of success. But in that moment, he realized the true value of wealth. It wasn't in cars, houses, or bank balances. It was in giving. It was in turning tears into smiles, hunger into strength, despair into hope. The mother, standing behind them, wiped her eyes. "Sir, I can never repay you." He looked at her firmly. "You already have, by raising a daughter as brave as Ava." Months later, something extraordinary happened. The local news caught wind of a little girl who once tried to buy milk by promising to pay when she grew up. The story spread across the community, touching countless hearts. People who had ignored that family began to notice, began to care. Neighbors brought food, teachers offered extra help, even strangers sent kind letters. When the reporter asked Ava what she wanted to say about the man who had helped her, she smiled shyly and said, "He told me I don't have to pay him back with money. He said I just have to help someone else when I grow up, so that's what I'll do. I promise." The man, watching the interview quietly from his home, felt tears streaming down his face. For the first time since losing his daughter, he cried, not from pain, but from hope, and one thought burned in his heart. Maybe this is what my life was always meant for. Life isn't measured by how much we own, but by how much we give. A bottle of milk may seem small, but in the right moment, it can become the difference between despair and survival. In your own life, you may pass by someone who seems invisible, a child, a mother, a stranger in need. You might think your kindness is too small to matter, but to them, it might mean the world. Just like Ava's promise, kindness is a chain reaction. One act can echo for years, shaping futures you may never even see. So the next time you're at the store or walking down the street, remember this story. Remember that sometimes all it takes is one moment of courage to step forward and say, "I'll help," because you never know whose life you might change or how deeply they might change yours. True wealth isn't what you keep, it's what you give away to light someone else's darkness.